Welcome to Getting Sketchy Live, brought to you by thevirtualinstructor.com. And now, let's get sketchy.
Well, hello there, everyone. Matt here with thevirtualinstructor.com, and welcome to Getting Sketchy Live, the greatest live broadcast in all of YouTube. I hope everybody's doing fantastic this evening, as this is episode 8 in season 16 tonight, and I'll be doing the drawing. But like always, I'm joined by my good friend and fellow artist, Ashley. You sitting over there? How you doing, Ashley?
Doing great, Matt. Thank you for asking. I hope you folks are doing well also, and you've got your materials out and you're ready to draw along with Matt as he works through a beautiful composition.
Yeah, and as far as materials go, I'm going to be working with pastels. I'm going to be working on kind of a buttercup colored pastel matte paper. So, you don't have to use the same materials I'm using, but you've got a few minutes to get those ready there as I go through my spiel here. For those of you who are new to Getting Sketchy, what we do here is we try to create a drawing for you inside of 45 minutes. So it's really more of a sketch. That's the name, Getting Sketchy. Plus, it kind of helps that Ashley and I are sketchy people anyway. So Getting Sketchy. So I'm going to be trying to do the drawing for you tonight inside of 45 minutes. And I'm going to be using pastels, like I mentioned before. There is a photo reference that I'm working from, and if you want a copy of the photo reference, I'm gonna have it up on the screen during the broadcast, but if you want a copy for yourself, all you have to do is click on the little icon of my face underneath this video. That will take you to the YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell while you're there if you're not already a subscriber. Then look for the post tab there on the YouTube channel. Click on the post tab, and that will take you to the post. And the top post is a link back to this video with a description of what we're doing tonight, as well as the photo reference. So you can go get that photo reference, come right back to where we are right now. But like I said, I'll have it up during tonight's broadcast as well. Now, if you're watching Getting Sketchy at thevirtualinstructor.com on one of the live pages, all you have to do is click on the resources tab and then look for the download link for the photo reference there. Also, if you are watching the live version, there is a chat box, of course. You can post comments, ask questions. We do ask if you have a question or comment that's directed at Ashley or I. If you use the super chat function, that will get your comment or question predominantly displayed there in the chat box. It does cost a little bit of money, but that goes to help out the channel. And I know a lot of you love Getting Sketchy. So we'd appreciate if you did that. And just a reminder, you have to be a subscriber in order to comment. So if you're not a subscriber, subscribe to the channel right now. You have to wait 1 minute, and then you can comment right after that minute is up. Now, you are here because you like to draw and paint, or you like to learn to draw and paint. And if you have not gone over to thevirtualinstructor.com, you are absolutely missing out. There you will find nearly 1,500 art instruction videos. Actually, there's way more than that. Just the membership program has nearly 1,500 videos. Art instruction videos, of course. There's over 789 hours of art instruction there on pretty much every drawing medium and subject matter that you can imagine. So we cover all drawing and painting and every subject matter across a multitude of courses and classes. Right now there are 113 courses and classes for you to choose from. There's ebooks with the courses. We also do weekly live lessons. We do 2 live classes a week, one on Monday and one on Wednesday after this show, each an hour long. There's a year-long curriculum for visual arts teachers that includes everything you need to teach. And I also do weekly critiques as part of the Members Minute. So there's a minimum of 8+ videos added to the program each month. So if you want to check it out, look for the QR code on your screen, or look for the link in the description below. And I would encourage you to check it out if you haven't already. Everyone starts out with a week-long trial for free, and then beyond that, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. So you can't lose, completely risk-free. But if you want to just check out 3 of our course videos and ebooks for free, I have a link for that as well in the description below this video. That will also put you on our mailing list, so I can send you tons of free art lessons as well, in addition to those free course videos and ebooks. All right, I think that's all I need to say there. I will tell you, though, something happened today. I was walking around the studio today, and I almost stepped on a snake inside of the studio. So I am watching my feet, looking at my feet. I got the snake out. I think it was a baby black snake, but I'm a little creeped out by that. At least sitting in this seat right here, my feet are a little bit, a little higher off the ground. So if I start freaking out tonight, it's probably because there's a snake slithering its way up my leg. Hopefully,
and there's about 50 yards of black cords under the tables.
Yes.
So everything looks like a snake.
It's a fantastic place for snakes to hide, that's for sure. So hopefully we won't encounter that, but there is that possibility, I guess. All right. So I think that's it, right?
I think so. I think you said everything that must be said. Now we can say whatever we want.
Yes. All right. All right. Let's go ahead and switch over and get into this one. All right. Here we are.
Oh, Charles has a funny one. He says snakes on a picture plane.
That is a funny one, Charles. That's a good one.
Quick.
You're winning the joke competition tonight. All right. The paper I'm going to be working on, this is pastel matte paper. I love this surface. It's kind of like a fine grit sandpaper. I actually wanted to work on Canson Mitant's pastel paper tonight. I wanted to use an orange paper for this. But I must be fresh out of the orange with the pastel matte paper. So I'm going with this kind of buff buttercup color with the pastel matte paper here tonight. Pastel matte paper has a little bit more tooth. It has a lot more tooth, actually, than the smoother side of the Canson Mitant's pastel paper, which I was planning on using. But this paper will work just fine. I also have an assortment of pastels that I have designated for use tonight. So I have limited my color palette here. Well, there's not an earthquake. It's me shaking it. I have limited my colors that I can choose from. I don't know how limited my color palette is. I'm going to be looking mostly at, matching the local color, but I am going to, try to bump up the colors a little bit, make this image pretty bright.
All right.
And I got a couple of pastel pencils as well. I have this dark purple, which I'm actually going to sketch things out with a dark purple pencil here. And then I also have kind of this yellow ochre pastel pencil here. The pastels I'm going to be using are mostly Rembrandt pastels. I do have a couple of new pastel sticks in here. So the Rembrandt, I'll say that 3 times for added effect. The Rembrandt pastels are soft pastels. The new pastels are hard pastels. And they behave very similarly, except the hard pastels, they're not quite as blendy. They're not quite as soft as the soft pastels, but they're pretty close to each other. And as far as the reference goes, you guys let me know what you think about the reference, because I'm curious to know what you think about the reference, because at the end of the broadcast, I'm going to share something about this reference.
Something special.
Something special. And I want to see what you guys think. So you'll have to wait till the end to find out what that is. But I'd love to hear your guesses in the chat box and also in the comments below this video. And also what I want you to comment on this video underneath the video. You can comment in the chat box too if you're watching this live, but if you're watching the recorded version, I want you to comment below too. What is your favorite pastel subject? What is your favorite subject to draw with pastels? So there's your assignments. Tell me what you think about this photo reference, and also what you somebody's already guessing.
No, Mary Elizabeth thinks you've done it before.
She thinks we've done it before.
And I remember a pastel you did for a live class that was similar.
Similar. Yeah, it was similar actually. The marsh landscape was similar.
It's very similar to the marsh landscape.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that until that was pointed out. So yeah, it is a little similar, but not correct.
Not the same.
All right. So all right, let's go ahead and before we turn on the timer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of sketch out where the horizon line is, where the edges of our stream are going to be located. Maybe a little bit of an indication of some of the distant trees, and then we'll go from there. Before we start, though, I want to point out that this is a really good example of an image where if you place the horizon line up closer to the top of the picture plane, then as a result, it puts emphasis on what's below it. Okay, so that's something to think about in your own landscape images. If you place a horizon line lower in the picture plane, then it puts emphasis on what's above it. So if we were doing this image and we had a very dynamic sky and we wanted the focus to be on the sky, then it would make sense to put the horizon line down at the bottom or close to the bottom. If we are doing an image like this, where the focus of the image is what's in front of the viewer or closer to the viewer, then it makes sense to put the horizon line higher up on the picture plane. All right.
Charles wonders, and I know you want to start drawing, that is the focal point in the dead center, and is that a thing you're supposed to not do?
No, I think this image is just in focus in the center. If you were to ask me what the focal point is in this image, I would say it's about right here where the stream spot goes back into space, because we have a horizontal, field back there, and we got some trees that kind of go down at an angle, and then the stream goes there. So your eye is going to be guided to that location. So I would kind of argue that the focal point is kind of right there, and I'm trying to match it with the reference.
In this case, the focal point and the focus don't line up, don't match.
Right. Focal point and focus, are different. And this image just it has the camera was in focus in the middle of the picture plane. So not necessarily the focal point. This piece could have a more defined focal point. You could kind of have someone standing on the bank up here maybe, or something like that, and it would be even stronger. But
if the highest level of focus was at the focal point, that would strengthen it as well.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. People talking about animals first, landscape. Okay, people are putting in their votes for what they like. All right. Let's go ahead and turn on the timer and get started here.
Yeah, let's start making some marks. Or you start making some
45 minutes on the clock. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of figure out where the horizon line needs to be. So this is about a pretty good spot here. So I'm just going to quickly draw a line here. And then we've kind of got these trees that kind of come up off in the distance. And we don't need a perfect shape here. I'm going to be trying to simplify things down in this image into basic shapes of color. So we're not going to get too detailed. We're just going to get as much material on the surface as quickly as possible here at the beginning, so that we can focus on trying to... Yeah, go ahead.
Why don't you address Janet's question? She says, I haven't used pastels. Any word of advice for a newbie? But what's the first thing you would tell somebody about working in pastel?
Well, the first thing I would tell somebody is you don't worry about details right now. Focus on shapes of color and value, and try to simplify those colors and shapes, or those shapes. Simplify those shapes of color and value as much as you possibly can. Also, there are a few things to keep in mind with pastels. One, pastels are sometimes referred to as a painting medium because, the thought process is very similar to painting instead of drawing. Now, we are putting a dry media onto a dry surface, so that is technically a drawing medium. But the way pastels look when they're finished, and kind of the way your mind needs to work when you're working on a pastel drawing, are very similar to a painting. So you kind of want to approach this more like a painting, even though it is clearly a drawing medium. And also there are a couple of ways to apply the material to the surface, and you really want to have a balance of different methods. One, you want to have areas that are blended, and two, you want to have some areas that are not blended, where you've put the material on the surface and just kind of let it sit there. You can add to that, Ashley, if you want. All right, I'm going to go with the black here, and I'm just going to start putting in some of the areas of dark value that I see. So very quickly, I'm going to get as much pastel on the surface as I possibly can early. And I know some of you are screeching, saying, oh, no, my gosh, Matt's using black. Yeah,
Straight to the black.
I'm using black, and I'm using it first, but I'm doing so just to create a base of dark value that I am going to put colors over the top. So I'm kind of creating a little bit of an indication of shadow here initially, and then we're going to layer colors over the top. So the black is going to actually mix with the colors that we put over the top to a certain degree.
And layering is key in pastels, and if you layered with black last, it would it would be more likely to stay black, or some of
Yes.
the marks stay black.
Yes, layering is something that I just completely
Right. To
seemed
me-
like an obvious
To me,
one.
that's key for pastels.
That
is
is
think
key.
in layers.
And it sometimes when I used to teach in the classroom and we would do pastel landscape assignment, students would come up to me and ask me, "Do I have enough layers, Mr. Fussell?" And I'm like, "Nope, more layers, more layers." So sometimes you think you have enough layers and more layers. So layering the color, of course, builds up depth in the color and makes things look a little bit more realistic and representational. So you want to simplify things, but also, get some complexity in those simplified shapes.
Now, Storm Dancer has a couple of comments. The first is, I got 2 packages of pastels, but they were both like wax crayons rather than really solid chalk, which is what I thought pastels were, which is right. And then a moment later, Storm Dancer comments, what is the difference between oil pastels and crayons? Yeah, I think you've got oil pastels.
That person has oil pastels.
And they are different than crayons in that they're made with an oil instead of wax. So they may have felt waxy, but if they're oil pastels, they're made with some sort of a vegetable oil, which doesn't completely dry. And so they'll stay smearable pretty much forever, and they don't act the same as regular pastels, be it they new pastels, the harder ones, or the soft pastels that Matt mentioned before. Oil pastels are not like them at all, even if they come in stick form and include the word pastel in their title. They are a little bit more like crayons, or a little bit more like partially dried oil paint.
Okay, I've got a dark bluish gray here, and I'm going over some of the shadows and just getting some of this color into the areas that we're going to cover up with
Feels
some
like
grass.
feels like a phthalo blue to me. It kind of has it's blue, but it leans a little towards the green side. I don't know if that's the black that's mixed in with.
Yeah, I think it's the black in there. This is kind of it's a bluish gray, which, a phthalo blue would be kind of like that.
Jan comments that oil pastels are great to work with and look awesome. I agree. They're a unique medium, and I would agree as well. As you say, they are a bit difficult to preserve. You just have to be really careful with them, not like rake, hard materials, tools, or drag something over the top because they'll smear. You can put clear wax over them just to create a little bit of a barrier between the oil pastel and the environment. And so if something were to slightly mark the surface, it wouldn't necessarily mark through the clear wax layer. So that's the way that I have seen oil pastels preserved that I thought was creative.
All right, I'm gonna get a little bit of dark blue in here, and then we'll darken that up, and then we'll go back to the top here. So get some.
Edie asks if they if they never fully dry, are they a conservation problem? And yeah, as much as regular pastels are, because they can smear forever as well. So they just it's a dry smear instead of sort of a mixing of colors in the same way as oil pastels. But it's artwork, so we do need to think about how we're going to treat it. And nothing's ever going to be as durable as an acrylic painting on like a wooden surface, something like that. So if your number one goal is to make sure your artwork is indestructible, then you want to use acrylic paint. Otherwise, we got to take steps, maybe cover it with wax paper, like a cover sheet. If you're working with oil pastels, and then of course, frame and hang your artwork. It's a great way to preserve it.
All right, let's go ahead and go with a little bit of blue in the sky. Let's see. That's a little
like
too
punchy. Is it too light?
Punchy. It's too light.
Yeah, it's a little too light up there. It looks great up against that buttercup colored paper.
Yeah.
PJ says, Matt and Ashley, I know you love new pastels. Have you tried Conte crayons? I think you especially, Matt, would adore them since you love the Conte pencil so much.
Yeah, we've used Conte before.
I think I did a drawing of a hawk a couple of seasons ago that I was It was okay. I wish I'd have gone a little bit larger, but I think I used Conte crayon for that. Sepia color, and maybe a little bit of white charcoal there at the very end, if I recall. I used to draw with Conte crayons more when I was a student, and I drew with them a lot back then. And we get requests often enough to work in Conte crayon. They're just limited, you got sepia and sanguine, and that's about it. Sepia and sanguine,
And they're a
black
little
is kind
waxy.
of they're a little bit waxier.
A little bit harder to blend.
In some ways, more, right? Your marks are better preserved, but we do get requests to draw in those, and so maybe they should make another appearance here on Gettin Sketchy.
All right, just adding some light blues and things to the sky. Like I said, I'm going to bump up the color a little bit. You can kind of see that already happening here in the sky. This may look like a white that I'm adding, but it's actually a very light blue.
Buddy points out that you've been using both New Pastel and Rembrandts at the same time in the sky.
No new pastels yet.
You haven't used New Pastels? Okay.
Not yet.
And, there is
not in this image.
Buddy may be referring to the, I guess, sort of a prescribed way of working between the two types of pastels. A lot of folks like to work with New Pastels first and go pretty far with those, still working with layers. And then as the tooth of their paper starts to fill, switch over to the softer pastels, which you'll lay down a little bit more easily on top of a pretty solid bed of pastel. That is a prescribed way of working.
Now, I actually work the opposite way.
You like that's what I was wondering. You're going to use New Pastels up there? So
yeah, I use New Pastels. Okay, this is a very light yellow ochre. I probably can't tell.
I can see the warmth in there.
Yeah, I'd like to use the harder pastels over the soft pastels.
You don't feel like it cuts too deep into them or cuts through?
No, not at all.
And if you're using, a good paper for pastel with enough tooth, I don't think you have to worry about that. There's a lot of best practices, I guess, in art making, but they're not the only practices, and you can find your own way. I don't worry about hard and soft pastels almost at all in terms of working with them in a certain order. I just pick the colors I like and layer them in the color, the colored layers that I prefer. Not too worried about how hard or soft they are.
All right, we're going to get some of these distant trees in here, and I'm going to try to create a little bit of variety in them as well with a dark green here. And I'm not worried about the edge underneath the trees in the distance, because we're going to cover that up with a streak of yellow ochre. Of course, it needs to be a little bit darker down at the bottom. So we're starting with kind of this dark green first.
Speaking of greens, we've got a lot of great comments and questions coming in. I'm not necessarily reading them in order. Buddy says, why would the yellow ochre not blend greenish with the blue of the sky?
Well, it's a very light yellow ochre. The Rembrandt pastels come in they varying shades of colors. Various values of colors, and they go very, very light with a lot of those colors. And, it almost is, it looks like a white when I'm holding it here.
Yeah, it really does. But I could tell it was warm because of the blue in the sky, or I would have mistaken it for white.
Right. Very true. All right. I'm going to get, let's go some touches of some blue back here just to,
all right,
create a little bit of shadow. Our
and
light source,
and it's far away too. The blue will help push it back.
Yeah, mainly towards the bottom of these trees. Just
PJ says that Conte crayons are coming in full sets of 72 different colors now.
I'm sure they are.
So,
I'm sure they
check
are.
that out.
Anything to make anything to get people to buy it.
Mm-hmm. And I believe, yes, Susan says, are any of your kids artists? My kids are in high school right now. One of them's about to graduate, and she's not an artist, but is pretty good at design. Always has been, but has chosen a different path for herself, and then chose another path for herself. So she's going to go to college next year. Hopefully, she's figuring it out what that path's going to be. My son, he will be in the 10th grade next year, and he will be a student in my art class. So still working on him.
None of my kids are artists, although they have artistic abilities. It's kind of one of those things, you don't want to do what your parents do.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's some of that at play there.
My son still likes to, he draws a lot, and he likes to draw on his own. So, like, he won't tell me what he's drawing. He'll just go down into the studio space and draw and use my materials. And sometimes he even gets on YouTube's and follows tutorials, but never any of mine. So I get a kick out of that. He could follow along. He could be
the same thing.
He follow along. He's getting sketchy right now, but now he's probably on somebody else's channel.
All right, so I'm going to put a few little pieces. Let's see, we got 30 more minutes left. Okay, I'm just figuring out how much time I need to spend back here. I'm going to put a few pieces of some light filtering through some of these trees, just to make them
some sky holes.
Yeah, and just kind of define the shapes of these trees a little bit further. And this is that light yellow ochre.
Now, some of you have made comments about the reference, and in an effort to sort of guess what Matt plans to reveal to us near the end of the program. And I want you to know that I have been recording your comments, your suppositions, your guesses. So we're gonna review those near the end of the show and talk about them. So don't think that if you've made a comment about the reference that it has gone unnoticed. I've just been sort of jotting them down. So keep it up.
Wait till the end to find out the big reveal.
It's like dessert.
And it will be a big reveal. Trust me. All right. This is a yellow ochre. It's a little strong. So I'm going to go back over the top of it with another yellow ochre, a lighter yellow ochre, and just kind of add a little bit of light to that.
PJ says it already looks like a landscape. Simple shapes and values, well placed. Hits every time.
Yeah, simple shapes and values. That is the key right there. Okay. All right, let's start. We're going to get a little bit of information right here. Then we'll go work back into that little area right here. This is a kind of a dark kind of earthy green. You know that when they had two different versions of Kermit the Frog. I mean, there's
what?
There's kind of a greener Kermit. There's one that's a little more yellow green, and then have you seen the frogs that are not Kermit, but they're other frogs, and they're kind of a blue green frog,
but look like they're still.
But they look like they're Kermit. Yeah.
I don't think I know that.
Okay, well, this is the color of the other Kermits, the other frog.
I'm assuming that's a later iteration of Kermit the Frog, not the original color.
No, it's just when they brought some other.
Was it supposed to be Kermit, or it's like Kermit-like frogs?
It's like Kermit, like it's like other frogs that live in the puppet world.
I see.
That are not Kermit. Okay, a little more black here on top of this non-Kermit the Frog green.
I mean, probably not entirely accurate, but I think he was originally made from Jim Henson's mother-in-law's winter coat.
No. Well,
that was the color of her coat. He pulled it right out of the closet and got a ping pong ball and maybe a Sharpie and for the eyes and made Kermit.
Bringing a little bit of green here. It's not easy being green.
So instead of turning an animal into a coat, he turned a coat into an animal. It's
There you
great.
go. You can see a little bit more of that green from this angle.
Oh no.
Yeah, see?
Mary Elizabeth tells me that was Elmo. That's how Elmo was made. He was from a
Elmo.
coat. Okay. I had a feeling one of my facts was off. Felt like it.
Get a few pieces of that green on this side.
Ooh, I love this angle.
Yeah, I always forget to switch to it because I'm too enthralled here. Of course, when you're doing the drawing,
process.
I'm not as enthralled because because I'm not drawing.
And when I'm drawing, I never notice that you switched.
Yeah,
I don't look at the feed.
All right, a little bit of blue in there. Let's get a little more blue in here too, just to make this a little more colorful. And a little more blue in this area here before we start filling that in.
Audra says, Ashley, your son reminds me of the saying that one can be a king in the world, but at home, he's still just a common man, like being a dad or a husband are noble callings, but not famous to their families. Yeah, that's right. And it's important to remember that, I think, for all famous people, that they're still common people at home.
Well, you want to talk about a common person at home, then it's me. All right, let's see. All right, let's go ahead and get a little information in the water up here. And I'm actually going to start with the black again. There's a reflection right along the shoreline. So I'm going to get a little bit of dark in there initially. And we've got a little bit of that going along right here as well.
I've got a question that other folks might be wondering as well. I'm a member, but do not know how to join the after show when this ends. I have looked over the site, but haven't seen any links.
All right.
Well, that would be the live class, I'm thinking.
Yep. If you look in the main menu on the website, there's a option to click on live. Click on live, and that will take you to the page with all of our live shows and classes. And then on Wednesdays, it's live with Matt and Ashley. So all you have to do is click on the view live stream button. It's a big old button on that live page. And that's how you do it. Pretty easy to find. So, we're talking about the main menu on the website.
And that, of course, starts about 30 minutes after this program. Not directly after.
Right. Okay, let's bring in a little bit of this stronger blue right here.
Peggy believes she can see the depth. The depth is working already. She says, beautiful. Yeah, the tightening of the little stream and the changing of colors from bottom to top really lead us back in space quickly.
This is a little bit of that light yellow ochre up there that we used in the sky.
The sky and the trees in the background, they feel pretty much done.
Well, I could go back and do more. I'm just trying to get as much as possible down as quickly as possible. You know what? I think we need a little bit of purple.
Ah, yes.
Of course we need some purple.
We need some purple. Purple and green look so great up against one another. I mean, more so than other colors that are part of a triad. I mean, the primary colors, they're wonderful, but red and blue up against each other just don't feel the same as purple and green. Maybe I'm just a fan of the Joker, just like that color scheme. Mary Elizabeth points out that the live show, which is after this one, is great and that it is a slower pace. And I think that's good for folks to know because sometimes the artwork here is created at breakneck speed, which is fun. It's a fun exercise to do to capture a lot of information in a short period of time. But if you feel rushed, the live class may be for you.
Yeah, and we do complete drawings and paintings, and sometimes they're many hours long. So each live class is an hour long, and we do one on Mondays, which is called Mondays with Matt, And then we do one on Wednesdays, and each one is a different series. So we're doing different stuff in each live class series.
Each series working on a single artwork for multiple weeks, up to maybe 4 or 5 weeks on Mondays.
Well, except for except for Mondays with Matt, right now we're doing Drawing Boot Camp 2.0. So
Okay.
it's the same series, but we've done lots
right.
of drawings.
That's right. And in the live class, I'm working on a charcoal drawing right now, and this will be the fourth week or the fourth hour of that drawing, with several more to go. So you have time. You know, if you feel like you fall behind, you don't have to just finish on your own. You can work on it between the shows, and then come back the next week, and we'll all pick up together at the same place.
This blue is going to transition into that darker blue down there at the bottom. So real light touch here, and then we'll bring some of that darker blue up. Maybe a little bit of gray in there too. Let's see. A bit of this blue gray, bluish gray.
Edie says, if Mondays are for Matt, which day is for Ashley? And Hadra replied, maybe it's Ash Wednesdays. Very good.
Well, it's
Very good.
the show's called Mondays with Matt, not Mondays are for Matt.
Mondays for Matt.
Just clarifying. And right now on Mondays with Matt, we're doing Drawing Boot Camp 2.0, where I'm teaching folks how to see as an artist. And I just published the recorded version of that. All these lessons are recorded too, so you can go back and watch all of the lessons we've ever done. And there's a lot, because I've been live streaming since 2012. And anyway, with Mondays with Matt, we have discussed quite a bit, and we're on our final drawing.
All
We're
right.
putting everything together, everything we've learned throughout the course of I guess it was the 12th lesson I posted today. So
Good looking
12
gradation
weeks.
you're working on there, by the way.
Well, I'm just going back and forth.
Yeah.
Until I can get a kind of a smooth transition. Now, you might notice that I'm making these marks in the water horizontal before blending them. And that's because I think that works really well for water.
Such
This
a
water's
flat
kind of
surface.
steel, so
Flattest.
you can use horizontal strokes to apply the color, and then pull down vertically like this for water that's steel and not moving. But I kind of like having a little bit of variety in there with these lines and things. So I'm not going to try to get too crazy with it. Get a little more variety in here.
Peggy says she's never painted before. She's a person that loves to draw and considers pastel drawings, even though most artists or many artists call it paintings. And if you've never painted before, but you love to draw, then maybe pastels are a great medium because they fall in between. And oil pastels work differently than pastels, but they feel a lot like painting to me also, because they smear into one another like thicker paint, like oil paint would a little bit. So that's another good segue into painting. And then, of course, it's not in color, but drawing in charcoal is a wonderful segue into painting because of the how manipulatable charcoal is, especially starting with vine or willow charcoal, because it really spreads and smears across a surface like paint would, but it's dry. So maybe you've worked a lot with, since you like to draw, worked a lot with charcoal already. I really feel like that's the drawing medium that helps train a person to be a good painter.
Yeah, I like to call charcoal the artist medium, because it really is kind of universal for drawing and painting. And I tell you, like you might have figured out, pastels are a great transition medium as well as colored pencils for transitioning to painting, and I think you'll love it. You don't use pastels that much. You're just been kind of considering yourself a drawer. Um, and oil pastels, I think, behave a lot like colored pencils. In fact, I like to compare them to colored pencils because a lot of the techniques that we use for oil pastels are the same as we use for colored pencils. All right, just making sure I got all these little dark areas in place before I start going with these lighter applications over the top. So a little bit more black. And I'd, if I had more time, I wouldn't be using quite as much black, but I'm using a little bit more black than I normally would because of the time that we have here.
You could layer down to that value, but more layers mean more time. That's true. I'm going to speed read some comments. Buddy says you need your very own data center to store all the shows, lessons, and videos.
Yeah,
You got a dedicated server?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
But the videos don't live on the server. They're all hosted by a third-party video service, which is a lot. But yeah.
Charles says it's not even finished, and I already like the sketch way more than the reference photo. And Hondra says, agreed, Matt's art has so much more artsy ambiance than the photo. Charles goes on to say, not that I don't like the photo, but the sketch has a lot extra, in quotes.
And I'm trying to get some pops of color here.
And then the mark making is always unique to the artist. We're going to bring, no matter what photo we're using, we're going to bring something uniquely stylistic to the artwork, because we make marks in a unique style. We make our own signatures in a unique way.
I'm start getting some of these little
foliage
pieces of stuff in here. Make sure it looks like light is hitting it.
Buddy wonders why you would blend with your fingers instead of a blending stump for pastels. It's a good question.
A blending stump is, especially on this surface, is going to not do a great job of blending because this surface has very, very textured. It doesn't look like it, but you have to believe me. Please believe me. So I don't really like to use blending stumps with pastels. I just kind of like to use my finger.
They're really hard, and your fingers are soft, and it's like if you can feel how lightly you're touching the paper or not.
I'll use blending stumps with charcoal and with graphite, but not so much with pastels, and never with oil pastels. I never blend oil pastels, really.
Charles says either, or he says, I'm a sock drawer, or he has said, I'm a sock drawer.
Okay. Both of those are interesting comments.
Mm-hmm. When I first read your comment, I imagined you only draw socks. So, wow.
The sock drawer.
Pretty flimsy. This is a foot inside, of course.
Oh, goodness. I've only got 12 minutes left. I thought I had... I was just rolling along here thinking I had plenty of time. In fact, I thought I'm making great progress.
Never plenty of time on Gettin Sketchy.
Well, I always start out so quick, and then I think, well, I got plenty of time, so I start to slow down a little bit.
And pastels, because they do cover a fair amount of space early on, they give you that, I guess, false sense of security. But if you're going to work in layers, the artwork, it's going to feel bigger than its dimensions. I don't know if we ever talked about the dimensions of this piece.
Oh, what I'm working on here is 7.5 inches tall by 5 inches wide.
All right.
few grasses out here.
Reba says, she says, I'm a sock knitter, but she might also be saying she's a sock knitter. No, I'm just kidding. Hunter says he's doing amazing water gradients, great value changes. Yeah, I really like that. I think it works well. It's nice color choices too.
Well, thank you. I wish I had a different green. This is just, should have pulled out a few other greens here. I would still be still under the time crunch. So I'm just looking for pieces that I can kind of pull out from the darkness here.
Mm-hmm. It's important when you're making these types of marks to keep looking at your reference so that your marks remain variable enough to feel like nature. We have a super chat, Matt.
All right.
Have your interests ever extended to calligraphy? Speaking of mark making, that's the question from Shell Bell.
I have never really been that interested in calligraphy, me personally. What about you, Ashley?
I am. I actually do calligraphy units in my classroom, usually at the end of the year when I'm trying to keep it a little cleaner and prepare for, restoring the art room to some sort of a level of cleanliness for summertime. And so we're going to be doing some calligraphy soon in the next couple of weeks in a few of my classes. And, we don't go too deep into calligraphy because of time. It's a brief unit, but I let my students work on a couple of we choose fonts from the Middle Ages and we work with those. And then a lot of times they'll make one page that is like an illuminated manuscript. And so we talk about the first letter of an illuminated manuscript. I do have some watercolors that are different types of gold, from like rose golds to what looks like a whitish gold to something that looks like 24 karat gold. And so we add some gold with watercolor after we do some of our initial ink work, and create one illuminated page, in addition to writing our names over and over and over in different fonts, and also fonts that we make up. So I do like calligraphy. We mostly use acrylic inks now for those, and some, still for black, we use India ink. I did know a calligrapher, a professional calligrapher, much better than anything that I would do in the classroom, who did tons and tons of pretty much her whole work consisted of hundreds of wedding invitations at a time, handwritten wedding invitations and things like that. And she always worked with watercolor. She would mix pretty heavily saturated watercolor and do all of her calligraphy with watercolor paint instead of ink. And she actually had quite the aversion to using ink and preferred watercolor. And she came in our classrooms and worked with students for a while, and used only watercolor paint for all of the calligraphy she did with those students in what was amounted to, I think, about a 3-day period. Buddy asks, have you ever seen the very old German letters? I have, and I actually have a shirt with a really old German font on it but the words are in Latin, and it says sinner and saint on it. So to describe our condition as being both sinners and saints at the same time. So it's a really old German font, but the words are in Latin. It's pretty cool. Patricia says, I saw this headline and thought of you. International Sumo Tournament is coming to Roller Town in Frisco. Wow, I had no idea. We're going to have international sumo champions on the mainland. I'm going to have to look at that. The next big tournament, I guess is next month. So we're just a few days away. Can't wait.
All right, let's go ahead and clean up the edges of this river here, this stream, not river. I'm just gonna put some of the little lights and things that happen right along the edge here.
Oh yeah, little details,
A little blue.
it's tiny, tiny little marks where the water's picking up the light as it makes a curve into the land. You know, it's not quite as flat, right up against the very edge. Frisco, Texas. Oh, it's in 2 days. Oh, I hope I can watch some of it on YouTube. No way I'm getting to Texas in 2 days. We have a sumo club here in our state, and I think I want to try to go to one of their, sure, much smaller tournaments in the summertime.
Right, there's a couple little stones and things in here. I want to get some more purple in here though. Get a little more purple on the edge here and the shadowed areas. And also want to bring in a little bit more variety here with this color.
Mary Elizabeth sees something she thinks this needs more cowbell.
Is that what she said?
Yeah.
Well, considering that there's no cowbell, I guess having a cowbell to begin with might be a good start.
Any cowbell is going to be more cowbell.
All right, I'm actually going to use some hard pastel here to draw in these rocks. It's a little easier to control the hard
That's
pastel.
what I've been waiting on. All those little protruding rocks in the foreground. Really gives us an understanding of this little stream and how shallow it is. It's dark, but it's shallow.
Here is. I don't have to use this color. That's not the right color. Let's try this one.
Edie sees, and she says that the tan grass blades really make a difference in the apparent depth. Yeah, I think it's because they contrast really well in value with the greens, and then so we can easily pick out how quickly the marks go from long to short, you know, and that change in scale of the marks really communicate the space. Very good point. Francis wonders if the mystery of the photograph has to do with what can be seen in the water. Francis sees a lot in the water: a dinosaur, a woman, a rabbit.
Interesting.
Is there a hidden picture? I'm going to write that down. Hidden picture. And I can tell you that Matt used to have a really great project he would do with his students, sort of a creativity assignment with hidden pictures. If I remember, that was usually a stippling project.
It was, yeah. Try to bring up some larger grass blades here in the foreground and then make a little bit more distance, more space.
All right. Peter V says, this looks great, Matt.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And you still got time on the clock. Oh, yeah.
See a little bit more of the
It's
color
nice.
from
Yeah,
this
it's
angle.
nice.
Really wish I had a little bit of a darker green that's almost black. That's what I really would like to have here. Hard pastel just look at that, it's exploding.
Dark marks make the tan ones feel even lighter. Catching the sun.
Now, I will tell you that I would prefer to use, I would prefer to layer the colors to build up those darks instead of using the black. I don't like using black, as most of you know. So I'm going to try to get a little bit more color in the shadows by adding some dark blue in areas in the shadows. So in these dark places, just to make things feel a little more lively and colorful.
Well, Hadrib says that you've managed a masterpiece in such little time.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Jan likes it better than the reference, Stunning Water. And I really like Matt's really fresh, light blue marks on the edges of the water.
Yeah, I think that really
like
ties it in, which reminds me there's one more little piece up here. Oh, I put it in the wrong spot.
Mm-hmm.
Cover it up. And try to get it in the right spot. There we go. Just before it goes around the corner. Get some light hitting back there.
Reba likes this one too. She says, great job.
Thank you, guys. So just simplifying things down.
And you know, this is the 8th drawing of the season. We have just 2 more before our critique show. And in the critique show, you know, we take a look at all 10 drawings we've done. Matt and I pick our favorites of one another's drawings, and we let and hope for you guys to pick your favorites in the season of our drawings as well. This one's definitely a contender.
All right. You know, I never just stop. I mean, I know the time is up, and I could definitely say this one's finished. I'm just going to fill in a little bit more of these little specks up here. And then I'm going to take the tape off. Okay, so this is your last chance to tell me what you think of this reference. Okay, so while I'm taking the tape off, this is your last chance to tell me what you think.
When the tape is off, Matt will reveal the surprise.
Now, the great thing about pastel matte paper, among other things, is that the tape is going to come off real easy.
Mm-hmm.
And this tape is super sticky because it's so old. You can ask Ashley. It's ridiculously old tape.
Dangerously sticky. I tape it across my pants 3 times before I put it down on a piece of paper. So it feels like it's just like covered in little fibers to hopefully reduce its adherence to the paper. I'm a little worried too. You know, I've got this old sticky tape.
So you can see all the edges.
Oh yeah, there we go. That's good. Nothing looks better when you take the tape off than a pastel, especially in person, because it builds up a little bit along the edges of the tape, and it actually stands in relief a little bit around the edges. It looks so cool.
All right, there's the drawing from the secondary angle, which I actually managed to switch over to once or twice.
Blue Sapphire Girl says, I can still see a lot of texture of tooth on my page. Would that be because of the paper or the pastel? It could be that your paper has a heavier or I guess more defined tooth than the pastel matte, which is very, very. It has a lot of tooth, but it's shallow.
Or you need more layers.
Or more pastel, or a combination of the two. I mean, if you're working on the rougher side of Mi-Teinte's paper, it takes a lot more layers to totally cover the tooth.
Yeah, that's true. This paper, like I said, I really wanted to work with the Mi-Teinte's paper tonight, but I didn't have the color that I wanted to use. So as a result, I stuck with the pastel matte paper. All right, so we've had. Matt, did you deliberately leave out the weed and its reflection?
It's right in the center.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that right
was
there.
A good call.
Yeah. That looks pretty strange.
Yeah, it's just so prominent.
Right. And it would distract from the composition. Doesn't make sense to have a leaf growing from there, or
that
a grass blade,
one perfectly curved blade, and its reflection lines up with it so smoothly. It almost feels like the weed you reference and its reflection are just laying on top of the photograph.
All right.
So we had some comments about the reference. I'm going to read them off. Well, one is Susan had asked, how do you choose your references?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a good question. PJ says, let's see. He's guessing that you or someone you know took this reference.
Yeah.
By the way, he left the shot.
Right. Okay.
Janet guesses that the reference is right outside your house.
Oh, okay.
It's nearby.
Very good.
One person did comment that to take this photo, you were laying in the marsh.
Oh,
so
okay.
Suffering for his art. Had to get a little dirty.
That's true.
And then, of course, we had the comment I read before about it being a hidden picture. Is there actually an image of something else in the reference? But Jay wondered, is this AI?
All right.
So those are the comments. And those are 6. So 6 comments at least. And there may have been more, but those are the ones that I was able to capture before they scroll off the screen.
All right. So here's the deal, guys. When we're looking for reference images for this show or for our live classes or courses or whatever, it is a painstaking event to find reference material. It might not seem like it. It might seem like that's the easiest thing to do, but that, we can spend hours easy looking for
to make a 45-minute drawing.
Right.
I'll look for 2 or 3 hours sometimes, and then find one, and then work on it another 20 or 30 minutes sometimes in Photoshop.
Right. Let's go bring it into Photoshop after that, and then make all the adjustments. Crop the image, change the colors, whatever you need to do to it. So it's a real time-consuming process. So for this drawing, I decided, I found some images, and it just really weren't, they just weren't right. So what I decided to do was use one of the AI tools that I have and create this image. So what I did is I went through a series of iterations and wrote in different prompts and things telling the AI exactly what I wanted to have. And so it took a bit of time for that, but it was way shorter than searching for the right lesson.
You probably
or the right reference.
Probably 20 or 24 iterations that you went through.
Yes.
And they started out really different from this.
Right.
So it took a while, took a lot of working with the program to arrive here.
Right. So I kind of feel like I created this image after I went through all those iterations and all the things that I put into the AI system. Now, this is a paid service that I use to create AI imagery. It's really good at creating videos, but I decided to just try it this time. And boy, I tell you, I was pleasantly surprised at how well it was able to follow my commands and come up with an image that basically came out of my mind but I didn't have to go find the image or take the photograph myself. So, it tells you a lot. Only one person said it was AI, right?
Yeah, that was Jay. Jay
All
is
right.
our winner. Jay, if you're still out there, ding,
Yeah.
ding, ding.
Now, I also want to point
Thumbs up
out
from Jay.
before you guys all crucify me because it's AI and freak out. Yeah, I know AI is creepy. I know it's pretty strange
And a little controversial in our sector.
But, when you're creating a piece of art, the only thing that matters is this, okay? The only thing that matters is your end result, all right? So whatever you start with is fine. For decades and decades, probably 100+ years, illustrators have been piecing together imagery together to create their drawings and paintings. So I don't really feel like this is that different. It's just easier. And whenever a new technology comes along, I always ask myself, what would Leonardo da Vinci
I knew
do?
that's what you were going to say.
Yeah, I always ask myself that. And I guarantee you, Leonardo would be all over AI right now. In fact, the tool I used is called leonardo.ai. So if you want to check that out, you can. It is a paid image. It is a paid service, but I may use this in the future to create photo references because I can come up with the reference that I want. And
you could have typed some of the same words that you were in your prompts into a search bar,
right,
and then went through hundreds or thousands of photos that were similar to what you had in your mind, but never really getting there.
Right.
Which is why, artists piece things together.
And some of the other
references.
iterations that I created, especially when I started, some of those are really good reference material too. So I can dictate what I want in the composition, how I want the composition aligned, how I want objects or people or trees or
you can
water
name
or whatever
colors you'd like to see or color schemes.
Right. Now, after I created this image in AI, I did take it into Photoshop. And I still bumped up the colors a little bit to create a color relationship that I was a little bit more pleased with. So I'm just saying that I think that this is pretty convincing as an image. The only issue I see with this image is that grass blade growing right in the middle of the water. And that's why I left it out. That is the one thing that kind of says AI. But everything else, not the case. So I was really impressed with using it to create this photo reference. And it's believable enough that it really wasn't caught by most of you out there. And, people are going to fall on different sides of the AI debate. I have my reservations about some of it, but I also feel like it is also maybe a tool that we can use as artists to, at the very least, create reference material that we can work from. So anyway, just thought that was interesting. And now you can talk about all the AI stuff in the comments and how you feel about an artist using a reference photo that they basically developed using AI. So do you think this is okay? Do you think it's not okay? Should we only be drawing things or painting things that actually exist in the world? How do you feel about all that stuff? And I'm using this time to add some more stuff.
He's
here.
still drawing, folks.
Well, I always stop when I'm working and take breaks and look at the artwork and try to decide what I want to do to it or whatever. And, as I'm talking to you guys, I'm in that state of mind. So anyway, in the comments below this video, let us know what you think about the AI and also what your favorite subject is to draw with pastels.
Yeah.
All right. Is that it? Oh, we forgot the super chat. So we're going to give that super chat. And do you remember who that was that did that super chat?
Let's see. Let's scroll back. It stays on the top of the page for quite some time. There we are.
It's Shell Bell. So thank you, Shell
Yeah!
Bell.
Let's go, Phil!
Yeah!
All right. Now we got that out of the way.
Can't forget.
The cheer.
Super important.
Yes. All right. Let's switch on over here. All right. thank you guys for watching this evening. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm pretty pleased with the piece that I created here from this AI image, and I'm excited about playing around with it some more and create some imagery that I can turn into drawings and paintings. So anyway, thanks again for all your kind comments. I see all the compliments that you guys have put in there, and I really appreciate it. Don't forget, next week, Ashley will be doing the drawing, and then the week after that, I'll be doing the final drawing of the season. Then we will have a season wrap-up show where we critique all the artworks that we created this season, and also choose our favorites. So don't miss out on that. Ashley, have anything else for the folks?
I'm just I'm surprised that there weren't more comments that maybe it's AI. So it just really shows you. Let's see. Edie says you can't stop progress. AI is here forever, and it's going to get even more capable. Yeah, and I think we're really seeing that jump in capability from last year to this year, because it was really hard to recognize. It was a beautiful reference. So thanks for your guesses and for all the many comments from the beginning of the show to the end. And I got to stop talking because I think I'm drawing in 19 minutes and need to get set up. So we'll see you next week.
Yeah, we got plenty of time. All right. Remember a few things. First of all, make sure you like this video if you like it. And if you are not a subscriber, go ahead and subscribe. And don't forget to check out what we've got at thevirtualinstructor.com. If you like this kind of stuff, I mean, that program over there is going to be right up your alley. You're going to love it. Again, the link in the description below this video. And you guys have a wonderful week. And for those of you who are going to see on the live show in just a few minutes, we'll see you then. And for the rest of you, we'll see you next week. Good night, everybody.